Hello everybody, how are you doing? It's Amanda. Today is the 13th of January 2020 and I am going to be making a video on the power of listening and what it means to really listen, and maybe why we can't listen in this ever frantic, busy 24/7 world, and why listening is a very important quality that we are going to be being asked to refine through this year. There's been a lot of talk about 2020 and 2020 vision, and I've mentioned that myself. So the ability for us to be able to see clearer maybe what is going on in our own lives, within ourselves and within the world. But yet I'm also feeling as though attention is being drawn to our ears. And it was funny actually, just a little aside, on the Elvis video that I made, thank you very much for all the people that have watched it, the Elvis and Bowie channeling that I made, there was a point in the video where I sort of put my hair back like that, and I think the camera was to the right or to the left of me, so basically you could see my ear. And when I was watching back the video, I thought, oh my God, you know, my ear looks disgusting. And then I was really quite repulsed at the sight of my ear, my own ear. And I was like, what is that all about? Why have you got almost like that primal reaction to just looking at your own ear? And I thought, well, maybe it's not just my ear, maybe it's ears in general. I've also got a bit of a thing about feet, actually, thinking about it. I don't particularly like feet either. Sorry, because, you know, lots of people love feet. I need to learn to love my feet. I realise that. That's the whole point of the message. I started to think, you need to learn to love your ears. And then I don't know, I was watching something on TV and it was David Bowie. I was watching a David Bowie video. And again, he is just singing his song and his hair is all beautifully shaven and you can see his ear. And it looked like he had quite a large ear in this particular video. And again, I had the same reaction. It was like, ooh, you know, I don't know about ears. And I thought, there's something in this. It's not about what they look like. It's about what they do. So Spirit is trying to tell you something here, Amanda, you know? What are ears about? Ears are about our ability to listen, to hear, all frequencies, the whole range. So in my personal life, because I am somebody that's quite passionate in terms of what I believe, you know, get me round a dinner table with a couple of glasses of wine in me, particularly if I'm with my family, and say you bring up a subject that, you know, is maybe a little bit controversial, I will be straight in there with like the best of them, okay? I'll be straight in there with the best of them, and hands up, I don't always, it's not that I'm not acknowledging the other people's opinions around the table, it's more that it's almost like I can see myself in slow motion, that what I'm trying to do is talk over, I suppose, somebody. Now, I'm being very honest there, because there's not a lot of spiritual teachers out there which would say that to you. Because, you know, we like to present ourselves, a lot of them do, you know, in terms of being the finished article. Well, I've always been very clear with you that I'm not the finished article, and indeed none of them are either. I'm just a bit more honest about it. I'm a bit more honest about my flaws. But the point is that I can see that the flaws are there to be refined. And I know that there's an awful lot of you watching this that will probably have exactly the same characteristic. Give yourselves a subject with a certain band of people around you, and maybe a couple of drinks inside you, or maybe not, and we can all get a bit heated. God knows there's enough subjects out there to get heated about at the moment. And so, of course, what happens is, because we are passionate, we want to say what we want to say. We've lost the art of being able to truly listen to each other. It's as though listening, and of course there are many books on this subject and many great teachers. I put Thich Nhat Hanh up there as a real enlightened being actually on this planet who talks a lot about the power of listening. Try to show us, you know, what we need to do. But I do think it's one of these things where we've almost been paying lip service to it, you know. We've been paying lip service to the fact that, of course, I listen to all opinions. I have to say, at this point, I think we should be a little bit compassionate and gentle with ourselves, because sometimes why we have chosen to close our ears to certain frequencies is because there's an awful lot of madness out there, okay? There is a lot of madness, but I'm hearing the expression, it's like we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. So there is a degree where you do need to sometimes protect yourself from propaganda, for example, or lies, mistruths, manipulative energy that can come in via words and communication. So it's right to be on guard and close the ears to a degree to that which we know isn't helpful for us. In the same way that we will, and I've often advised this in terms of my clients, it's helpful to close your ears to hateful rhetoric or language that is said to you. So say, for example, I don't know, you're with a partner who always belittles you and puts you down. Well, you have a choice in that moment whether to listen to every word, you know, soak it up as though it's the juiciest truth and take it into your body and believe that and become that I am worthless, that I am this, that I am that. Or first, maybe strategy in terms of trying to walk away from such a person, because that isn't about loving yourself, staying with somebody that's constantly belittling you. But the first step would be just to close down to that sound vibration, you know, that is just on at you the whole time, that you're this, you're that, when you know actually it isn't the truth. So remember also that I think one of the reasons we've closed down to a lot of sound and noise is because sometimes we've had to, okay, in our personal lives and also in the collective. There's a bit of a sort of free-for-all out there at the moment. You know, if somebody says something, it must be the truth. And I see that the whole time. I see it sometimes in the comments that come in as well. You know, so-and-so has said this, so it must be true. There doesn't seem to be any great discernment in terms of, well, they might have said that, and they may be whoever they are, but actually, does that resonate with you? Is that your truth? So listening seems to also come in with discernment, seems to also come in with what is truth, also seems to come in with, is it aligned to me or not? But that doesn't mean that we should just close our ears off to everything, okay? So, you know, the line from the John Lennon song came back to me as I was thinking of doing this video, and it's the song which is called Nobody Told Me, and the first line of that song, the very first line of that song, is John says, everybody's talking and no one says a word. And that just feels like where we're at, really, as a collective that's out there. Everybody's talking. There seems to never have been a time where there's more noise. Okay, there's just a plethora of information. And of course, information isn't the same thing as wisdom. Okay, within colour therapy, it's quite interesting because yellow as a colour is very much linked into knowledge, but gold is linked into wisdom. So it's almost like wisdom is the higher vibration of knowledge. Knowledge is just about knowing something analytically. Wisdom is the ability to feel for whether that is the truth, whether it's my truth, whether it's God's truth. So yeah, I like that line from John, everybody's talking and no one says a word. So John was sort of giving me that again, and I want it to form the basis of what I'm talking about here. A few things that Archangel Metatron has said to me with regard to listening is that obviously in an ideal world, we need to have the ability to be able to sit down with somebody who has the complete polar opposite opinion of us on something, whether that be religion, whether that be politics, whether that be sex, whether it be any of the big controversial subjects that they say you should never talk about at a dinner party, you know, or with friends. But you should ultimately be able to sit down and talk about something with somebody that has the opposite opinion of you. What seems to have been happening over the last couple of years in particular, and I think social media has a part to play in this, is that we seem to have lost the ability to be able to do that, if we ever even had it in the first place. And I think that's why Metatron is drawing us back to the wisdom of the elders in our society and the indigenous people. And he's showing me both the peace pipe and the talking stick as tools that are used in communities and have been used for goodness knows how many hundreds of years by our indigenous peoples. And so I've brought out the two cards that I have in the deck by Denise Linn, which is called Native Spirit, which show both a talking stick and a peace pipe. Okay, and I thought I would just remind us about what they are about. I will just also show you my talking stick, which is quite magnificent and was gifted to me by one of you. It's selenite. And can you feel the power of that? Okay, so I'm going to be holding this as I'm talking to you. This is my talking stick. Where do I start? I think I'll start firstly with, let's start with the talking stick as I'm holding the talking stick. Okay, let's see what Denise Linn talks about in terms of the talking stick. Right. So it says, during tribal council meetings, a decorated stick called a talking stick would be passed around. And as each council member held the stick, he or she had the opportunity to speak from the heart. Each person in attendance would be asked to weigh carefully the words of each speaker. The talking stick reminded each person to be authentic. Communication restores trust and allows you to clarify your ideas, position and feelings. It can be healing when you share what has been withheld. Actually, I'm going to just pause at this point. I want to go back to what's just been said there. How interesting. What strikes me is the fact that, because Metatron showed me us as a soul group in the past, you know, many, goodness knows how many eons back, I was shown a vision of us sitting in a circle on the soil, on the ground, with a talking stick and with fire in the middle of us, of the circle. And he reminded me of our ability to, A, be able to sit for longer and to listen to every single individual member. Also, the vibration, which was slower, okay? There's this thing that's come in with 24/7 society, which is like, give it to me quick, give it to me in a sound bite. If it's not going to resonate within the first couple of minutes, I'm just switching off anyway. Whereas actually in a sacred circle, you would sit and you would give the person the respect who was talking, who held the stick, okay? Also, by the person speaking who holds the stick, it would be a reminder to them to try to speak from the heart, as it's just been said there, but try to make their words as eloquent, concise and meaningful and higher perspective as they possibly could. I'm sure also they had their times when, or we would have had our times when we sat and we held the stick and maybe we needed to vent or let go of anger. But equally, the people that were listening would have been listening with ears open, able to try to understand the level of pain that was coming out of the person that was voicing that sound, okay? So, you know, it's not like we can walk around with one of these the whole time, every time we are confronted by the requirement to listen. But I do think it's almost as though we can energetically imagine that we are holding this when it is our time to speak, but also to remember that sometimes it's our time to listen as well, okay? And to give the person that's talking the chance to express themselves. Because what Metatron is saying, that sometimes the way that people are trying to express themselves, it's not just that it can be coming from a place of pain, so the words may be distorted. It's the fact that that person might not have the ability to be able to convey everything that they need to convey in that one moment. So it needs to be seen in a wider context. This deck also goes on to say that decorate a stick or a feather to use as your personal talking stick. Whenever you hold it, let it be a sacred reminder to seek the truth within. Take a minute every day to take stock of where you are and to ask yourself about what is so in your life. Simply taking a moment to discover your inner truth can have a profound healing effect on your life. Okay, so that's the talking stick. Okay, this practice, this tool that was there for a reason. Okay, and that we seem to have lost in our modern society. We certainly have lost it online. I mean, it is quite extraordinary. As a content creator, as they call us on YouTube, you can put a video out about something and people often won't even watch the video. Within a few minutes of posting a video on a subject that maybe, you know, hopefully you've put some considered time, attention, care and love into, and obviously try to channel in a higher presence and a higher spirit, somebody will straight away just put their opinion of whatever the subject is, without actually having the grace to listen to even what has been said in the video itself. It's that same thing about trying to talk over somebody, not allowing somebody the opportunity to talk, and for you, the opportunity to listen. The peace pipe, let's talk about the peace pipe next. Okay, the peace pipe. So, and actually that, if you look at the painting behind me, that's what he's holding. He's holding a peace pipe. So in native traditions, sharing a peace pipe filled with sacred tobacco and herbs was a way of finding common ground and dropping discord. It was a respite in order to calmly assess a situation and find a peaceful resolve. There are times to drop everything and leave, and there are also times to carefully mend bridges with people, situations and places. So this is, again, there seems to be a theme that's coming through on both cards, the peace pipe and the talking stick, which is about slow down, okay, slow down. A more considered approach is needed. So certainly with regard to the whole subject of communication, not just listening, but that we all need to slow down a little bit. It's almost, you often see it in people who've got a wound where they have to fill a space. They have to fill a space. You know, there's nothing worse than silence. I have to fill the space, because if there's an emptiness and there is silence, that's actually going to be a bit awkward and I'm going to start shifting in my seat. It's funny, as I've grown older, the one thing I really crave is silence, complete and utter silence. I don't get it very often, but then I can carve it out for myself if I really wanted to. But the awkwardness of silence seems to be something that again needs to come up for healing. And I'm being given the analogy here of two people in a restaurant, and I don't know, maybe this was on a film, social media, somewhere where I've seen it, or I've seen it commented on by somebody probably who was younger actually, which is that you see a couple in a restaurant who are not speaking. Maybe they're just eating their meal, but they're not speaking. Well, obviously, if they're both sitting there with faces like thunder, you know, and fury coming out of every single pore, then you can sort of get the sense that actually maybe they're not very happy with each other, which is why they've got nothing to say to each other. But what's interesting is, particularly in longer term relationships, what often tends to happen is you can go out for a meal, and actually there is this beauty of just being able to sit in silence with another person that you know very well, that you trust, that you don't have to just keep filling the silence for the sake of it. And you're not judging that as there's something wrong. There's something wrong because we haven't got 1,000 things to say to each other the whole time, you know? Maybe it's already been said, okay? Maybe it doesn't need to be said because actually you're so in tune with that person that there is just this vibration of I can sit with you and I can just sit with you. I can sit with you. I don't have to say anything. But often it's misjudged in terms of other people looking on, which is like, oh, look at them, you know, they're not saying anything. Look at us here on this table, you know, we're having a bowl over here, you know, we're there's a lot of noise. You know, the thing is, sometimes a lot of noise doesn't actually equal great peace. So that analogy of the couple that just sit in silence, sometimes what I'm hearing Metatron says is it's because they've earned that silence, okay? And who is somebody else to look upon them as like, oh, something wrong with them? It's because we fundamentally have a problem with silence in our society. And, you know, that says something about us. Of course it's difficult. You're living in cities and towns. There's noise everywhere. But I suppose what is coming through here is trying to find the silence within, isn't it? It's about trying to find the silence within. So there's a lot of different sort of concepts being talked about here. We're talking about the silence within. We're talking about the ability to listen. We're also talking about the ability to speak and to talk from a heart-centered place. And it's almost as though being asked to talk when we're on our spiritual path, when we've really got something to say. Not to just say something for the sake of saying it, okay? I'm sure many of you are resonating with that, or maybe you're feeling that in your own personal lives, which is that if I've got something to say, I'll say it. But if I haven't, I'm not just going to sit and do it for the sake of doing it. It's funny, actually. My mum was here yesterday. I was having a little cup of coffee with her in the afternoon. And I don't know how we got onto the subject, but we got onto the subject of small talk. Oh, I know why it was, yes. Anyway, but the point is you don't need to know why it was. But anyway, Mum said to me, she said, you've never been particularly into small talk, have you, Amanda? And she wasn't implying that that was a negative at all. And I said, no, I haven't, Mum. I said, it's not that I judge it. It's just that it's almost like I feel I don't need it. I don't need it. And I'd prefer to get into sort of the deeper stuff straight away, basically. So it's like, I don't need all that small talk. And I used to think there was something wrong with me. You know, I remember standing on particularly school playgrounds as a mother. And, you know, all these mums would be grouped together in groups and making small talk. And I would be the one standing at the back on the perimeter of the fence. And it's just like, it wasn't my world. It just wasn't my world. I actually was viewing that time of standing just waiting for my children to come out of school as a moment to just be, you know, and to have a few minutes quietness, actually, because, you know, I've got a busy life and I'd have been working before that. I'm not saying the other mums weren't working, but for me, I didn't need that chatter. It's so interesting, though, because some people, of course, do need that because they're lonely or, I don't know, they just need it. They need the support of it. Take it out of the school environment now. I'm also thinking about older people who have too much silence, you know, people who are lonely, who are older, who live on their own, who never hear anybody else's voice, you know. So it's all about balance, isn't it? It's all about balance. But I think that's what the beauty is of these old indigenous traditions, why they are important, why we can learn from them. Because they seem to have got the right balance to me. You know, if I close my eyes now and I imagine that I'm there and I'm in that circle, one, I'm with other people, I'm not alone. But equally, as I'm seeing this circle now, we're not all so huddled together and on top of each other that it's uncomfortable. I'm seeing myself in a circle that has got space. I'm very aware of the person that is to my right, the person that is to my left, the person that is opposite. But there is space between us to be who we are, to have our own space, both within and our own auric space, as it were. But I'm aware I'm with others, but I'm also aware of my own inner journey, I suppose. I'm aware I'm part of the collective, but I'm also aware that I am an individual that has my own presence, story, and time on this planet. And then I'm just seeing, as I say, whether it is the peace pipe or whether it is the talking stick, it's like they sort of intermingle for me as energies, them being passed around and everybody just being able to pause and listen to what the others have to say. And equally, when it's your turn, to be given that mantle and to be given the respect that comes with that mantle. And it's interesting because Metatron was also showing the analogy of when it doesn't work, you know, when we aren't listening to each other. And he was showing me the House of Commons in the UK. So, you know, it may very well be similar in the countries that you live in. But, you know, Houses of Parliament, House of Commons is our ruling, you know, body, and they all debate. But they actually have to have what's called a speaker who sits on this high chair, literally a bit like they're all children on the benches. He's higher up than they are. And if anyone that's done psychology understands if you position yourself higher up, it's because, you know, I'm needing to control all you lot down there. Okay, I had a boss that did that to me once. He used to sit on this big high chair, and then you'd come in and sit opposite him at his desk, and your chair would be really low like this, and it'd be like, you know, you're the boss. Anyway, the point with the House of Commons is the Speaker is on this high chair, and he's trying to control the masses. And the masses are actually, supposedly, our MPs that are representing us. They are representatives of the collective in the UK, whether you like them or not. They've been voted in. That's what they are. But yet he has got, I think he's got a hammer. Has he got a hammer? He has to sometimes bang down on this hammer, and he has to keep shouting. He has to keep shouting, order, order, order. And he really has to shout it at the top of his voice over and over again to shut them up. It's like they're children, okay? It's like they're children that won't be quiet. And then and he's literally trying to control it. You can speak now. You sit down. Then it's your turn. You've spoken for too long. You know, you haven't said anything. Do you want to have a go? Oh, because it's almost like the energy of the talking stick and the peace pipe is nowhere to be seen within that chamber, okay? And it's like we need to bring it back. We need to bring it back energetically is what I'm feeling. Of course, it's never gone away in other cultures and other amongst the indigenous people. I completely understand that. But I feel as though we're entering a time where we need to learn from the elders, okay? We need to learn from the elders. And it's almost as though we've gone so far away from some of this ancient teaching and ancient practice that we've got really lost. And I think it's been accelerated by social media, which has just made everything faster, quicker, gimme, 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 you know? So have a think about what I've said there with regard to these two things. And, you know, when you're next asked to speak or you feel like you want to speak, try to imagine that you're holding, you know, the talking stick. Maybe get yourself a talking stick. It doesn't have to be literal. You don't have to physically be holding it, but you can if you want to. But if you imagine that you're holding that, as I say, it reminds you to speak from the highest place you can, from a place of love, from a place of truth. And I also feel that by holding this, it's as though you command the respect. So it's as though the waves start to recede a bit and people actually do open their ears to listen. Okay, moving on. The next thing that Archangel Metatron wanted me to talk to you about with regard to this whole subject of listening and truth and communication was, he keeps saying to me, it's not either or. It's not either or. So I'm going to give a contentious illustration of this at the moment, okay, which came in on the back of the Australian video that I did about the fires that are raging, I think still there, so still continuing to send healing and gentle rain to douse that heat and those fires. But what came in was comments about, well, you know, I didn't, by the way, say it was climate change. I choose my words very carefully on videos. But some comments came in like, you know, well, of course, it's not climate change. It's just arson. You know, it's arson. They've proven that, you know, there are arsonists that have started this fire. And I heard Metatron just very gently say, it's not either or. It's not either or. Do you understand what he means by that? What he means is that it can be both. Okay, it can be both, as in that example. It can very well be the reality that arsonists did set fire to parts of the land. It can also be the case that whether you want to call it climate change or you just want to call it weather, okay, in terms of what's happening with the environment, weather. The other part of it is arson can be a contributory factor, but there is also another factor, which is that the temperature in parts of Australia at the moment are breaking records, okay? It's the hottest it's been for a long time. There's also extraordinarily high winds, okay, which are fanning the flames. It's not a case of it's either this or it's that. It could be both, okay? And I think that's actually really, really important information because you can apply it to lots and lots of things, which is rather than it is just this or it is that, it is black or it is white, actually middle way. How many times have I talked about the middle way? It can be a bit of both, okay? In the same way, taking away, you know, making it a totally different subject now, with regard to ourselves as spiritual beings, we are both light and dark. It's not a case of either or. It's not a case that I am just this profound and you are this profound light being, you know, with a halo and wings and all of that. I also can be a shitty human being from time to time. So can you, believe it or not. Okay? It's not a case of either or. And again, if we start to understand that about ourselves, we can start to understand that about the person that we're listening to. And if we start to truly understand that they can be both light and dark, they're a mixture of all of it, but they're trying their best. They're trying to, you know, hopefully when they're communicating to you, they're trying to communicate from the right place. I think it just helps bring a level of understanding. So, you know, I've written down here what Metatron was saying is there's two sides. It's like we're talking about two sides to the same coin a lot of the time, okay? I mean, you see it in religion the whole time in terms of, you know, religious debate. I don't even want to call it debate because, again, it's like we've lost the ability to be able to debate. I never went to a debating club at university, but there were debating clubs, you know. Certainly a lot of the universities, I think, still have them. A debating club, you know. In fact, I keep talking about my bosses. I've had a few different bosses, but another boss that I used to have, in fact, she's a lady. She's retired now. She's quite old, but to keep herself with it, I suppose, and compos mentis, and to keep her mind mentally agile, she joined a debating club after she retired. And they would give her, you know, quite a tough subject, but she would, you know, start the debate off and then, I guess, marshal it and, you know, try and bring a conclusion to whatever the subject was. But we've lost our ability to be able to do that. Again, just think about Parliament. Think about the way that probably, I'm sure it's not just the UK, the way the House of Commons behaves. But again, rather than judging them for it, I mean, it is terrible. They're like, sometimes they behave like animals, to be perfectly honest. That's actually an insult to animals, because animals, I'll talk about that in a moment, animals know how to communicate. Thank you for bringing that in, Metatron, okay. It happens all over the world, you know. But remember, they're just a reflection of what we're doing in maybe our own homes, in our own communities, in our own workplace. Who's worked in a place where there's, you know, like the bully, the person who just wants to speak the whole time? It's quite interesting because my old job, before I got into this, or did this professionally, I've always been into this. I've said to you before, I was a qualitative market researcher. Well, what the hell is that? As somebody who runs focus groups, okay? So I used to run focus groups. I used to be the person that moderated the focus groups. The point of when you do a focus group is you have to be the person that marshals the group. And there is always somebody in that group who won't say anything, okay? Because they are usually, maybe they are feeling dominated over by other group members. Maybe they just don't have the ability and the confidence to speak up. But you've also got the other person who never stops talking, and you try and shield, with body language and other techniques, you try to just give them the vibe to just please, let somebody else speak. And if they don't get the more gentle cues, then you just tell them, please, we want to hear from somebody else now. But yeah, this whole thing about we need to learn how to debate, okay? It's so important for our world. Now, animals came through, and it was quite interesting. We can learn a lot from the animals. Quite interesting again. Went to the cinema over the weekend, went to see Jumanji, The Next Level. Great film, great film. Really enjoyed it. And actually a lot of symbolism within that film. Maybe I'll talk about that in another video, about avatars and becoming another version of ourselves. But the point is, they were advertising Dr. Dolittle. Okay, Dr. Dolittle is coming to the cinema soon. Maybe it's already arrived in other parts of the world, but it hasn't actually landed in the UK yet. I think it might be out in February, and it's got the gorgeous Robert Downey Jr. in it, who I must admit I have got the hots for. So I will definitely be going to see that. But Dr. Dolittle, he's the man who can communicate with the animals. And actually in Jumanji, thinking about it, there's a guy who is a zoologist who can communicate with the animals. It's done very well. It's done very well, and it's very funny. If you've seen the film, he communicates with these camels, basically, and he has this conversation with the camels. But the point is, yeah, it's about he's able to speak, animals speak, as he were, or camels speak. But animals are able to communicate to each other in ways that we just don't understand. And Bella reminded me of that before I started making this video, you see, because I came upstairs to make this video and I said to Bella, my dog, half jokingly, I said, now I'm going to do, I talked to her, you see. So I said, I'm going to go and do a video, Bella, on the art of listening. Can you not bark your whole way through it? And she just looked up at me, as if to say, what are you going on about? And then as I was walking out of the door, she telepathically sort of said to me, remind them about the way that dogs, not just dogs, cats as well, can hear, back to listening, they can hear different frequencies than you can, okay? We are able to hear a whole other spectrum and actually be able to see a whole other spectrum than you can. It was like her passing shot, don't try and shut me up, Mum. Just remember, I can do this and you can't. You can't hear that siren going off, I don't know, 5 miles in the distance. I can, So animals have just this very astute ability to be able to listen and to be able to see at a much higher frequency than we can actually. So we can learn from that. And I know some of you that watch me are animal healers and therapists and communicators. I hope I've got some animal communicators watching me. I'm sure I do have. So I don't know. I just feel as though even that film, Dr. Dolittle, coming out, feels as though there's a message there for us in terms of, this guy was able to talk to the animals, and it's always been sort of like a bit of a joke, the film. It's like, aha, he could talk to the animals. Well, the thing is, we all can. We can, if we can communicate to okay, well, sorry, there's so much information coming through here. Can you just slow it down a bit, please, Metatron? Let me just write down what he was saying. Hold on. I'm going to forget it otherwise. Because he's bringing in the Galactics now. The Galactics, animals, humans. Right. Let's go back a track. Metatron is saying, we have to get this, guys. We have to learn how to be able to communicate with each other. And a big part of it is learning to listen to each other, okay? Animals are coming in to help us with this, to enhance our ability, not just in terms of ears and speech, but also in terms of telepathy, which is why so many of us are so, heartbroken at what's been happening out in Australia with the animals. It's as though telepathically we've been hearing their cries, okay? And hopefully we're responding to that as well in terms of whatever we can do, wherever we are around the world. But it's also about, for us to be able to go up the next notch, which is actually what the universe wants for us as a species, the human being, which is to remember our galactic heritage How are we going to converse with any galactic being if we can't even converse with ourselves at human level? If we can't converse and listen to each other and try and get on with each other and speak to each other respectfully and from a heart-based place, human to human, how do you think it's going to go when we've got human to galactic? Okay, you know, there's enough miscommunication that goes on between humans at the moment. What's going to happen when you get another origin? I don't want to call it race, but you know, a galactic origin versus human origin. Yes, we have strands. Yes, we've all got part of star seed within us, galactic heritage within us, angelic heritage within us. That's the strand that we need to bring out. So that's the strand that we need to be practicing now with each other as human to human, because if we can't do that, it's like, it's not gonna go that well, is it? You know, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the aliens land and the ship lands, they don't use speech actually, do they? They use sound. There's the musical tones are what is needed to bring common ground. So I feel as though the vibration of music and the vibration of sound is going to help us as well. Let me tune into that a little bit more. I feel as though I want to bring in Archangel Sandalphon to help me with that. So the vibration of sound and music. He's saying, why do you think all of the great classical pieces have no words? I'm not an aficionado of classical music, but he's just showing me, you know, Beethoven's Fifth for some reason, he's saying to me, but Mozart, all of the greats, you know, Mozart, Beethoven, etc. Yes, you can see I'm struggling. They, in all seriousness, they don't have words, okay? But yet they are able to convey the whole spectrum of human emotion, from the greatest pit of despair and challenge to the greatest exhilaration and high, and everything else in between. And it's all done with musical notes. So it's quite interesting. What Sandalphon is saying to me is you have to be the notes. And just to explain what that means, years ago when I started working with Archangel Metatron, who, as you've heard me say many, many times, one of the ways Metatron is able to show his energy to us is through colours. And I teach colour therapy. And Metatron said to me, it's not enough just to teach colour therapy. It's not enough just to go and buy a book on colour therapy. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. You know, you can go into a bookshop today and buy a book on colour therapy. You can watch a video on colour therapy. You have to be the colours. Shall I repeat that? You have to be the colours. That's what he's always said to me. You have to be the colours. So you have to heal within you your red issues, your yellow issues, your gold issues, your blue issues. You have to also demonstrate blue energy. You have to demonstrate red energy. Right now, I'm probably demonstrating a combination of red and blue, actually, which is quite interesting, because I'm speaking quite passionately to you, because I'm passionate about what I'm speaking to you about. I'm also being quite direct with you. I'm looking you in the eye. But I also, hopefully, my blue energy is coming through in terms of my communication, my throat chakra. I'm hopefully speaking some truth. It's a combination of red and blue. I'm standing in my truth. I'm here showing myself as a teacher. You know, I'm putting my head above the parapet. I'm out here on YouTube. Red is the colour of leadership. I'm being both red and blue at the moment. So Metatron said you have to be the colours. Sandalphon is saying you have to be the notes. You have to be the notes. You have to be the sounds. Okay? I mean, this is deep stuff and we probably need to explore it in other videos to come. But, you know, what does D sound like? What does C sound like? What does, as I say, I'm not a sound therapist, but those of you that are sound therapists are probably getting exactly what I'm trying to say to people here. And maybe you need to take it out into your work to help people to realise that they need to be the notes. They need to be the tones. They need to be the full orchestra, okay? And because the thing is, within an orchestra, in the same way as within a rainbow, the greatness of it is made up by its individual parts, okay? and we're back again to, if we really understand that the rainbow is made up of individual parts and every part is equal, and we know that the orchestra is made up of many different instruments and every one is equal, then we take the time to listen to each note. We take the time to look at each colour. Last point, and then I'm going to move on. 44 minutes and 44 seconds when I said that. So whatever I've just said was a bit of an angelic frequency coming through there. The last point, which is a more practical everyday thing just to bring through on this subject, but again this has come from Metatron, is that what will really help us to be able to hear each other better, and also then be able to communicate clearer without so much bias or a slanted perspective, is to read and listen to multiple sources. So he's saying what's happened is that people have become too entrenched in terms of, for example, if you look at politics or the news, they're only getting their feed from one particular source, okay? They're just going to whoever it is, you know? That's who I get my news from. That's the paper that I read. That's very 3D, by the way, you know? That's certainly something in the UK that, I grew up with, and again, I come from a marketing background. So in marketing, we do this the whole time to people. You're a Daily Mail reader, so you have this, you're about that. You're a Guardian reader, so you're sort of about that. Well, again, if we're moving into 5D and the unity consciousness that needs to come in, there needs to be a blurring of these boundaries a little bit, so that the Guardian reader understands the Daily Mail reader and the Daily Mail reader understands the Guardian reader. At the moment, it's never the twain shall meet, It's quite comical, actually. Go on a train in the morning in the UK, people going off to work, they hide behind their papers. And, I've done it myself. I've sat on trains and someone's stuck a Sun newspaper in my face like that, or somebody does an opposite and comes out with the Times, and I have a reaction to that. I'm being honest. It's like I make an assumption on that person because they're reading that paper as opposed to that paper. The point is we're all one. It's just that the essence of what I'm trying to say here is Metatron is saying you've got to become, for multi-dimensional selves, multi-dimensional souls have to read multiple sources, okay? Multiple sources, and that will lead you closer to the truth. You're not going to get the truth just from one source and one source alone. Because what you're seeing, particularly online, is people come at you and they're just repeating what's been in the daily whatever, or what they've seen on Sky News last night, or CBS, or whatever the other stations are around the world. So my guidance would be, not that I'm encouraging people to sit in front of the news all day, and get bogged down in that, because it can be very negative. But when you do want to dip into the news as an example, let's just use the news as an example, make sure you are watching multiple sources. So, in our house, for example, again, I don't watch it a lot, but, certainly my husband as well, we will look at the BBC, we'll look at Channel 4, John watches Al Jazeera as well. We don't actually get the American media just because we're not signed up to Sky. But we would if we had the recourse to do so. Maybe I would look at CNN maybe if I was in a hotel. But the point is, it doesn't matter what the channel is, because straight away I can almost hear people saying, "Oh, what, you watch CNN, or you watch Channel 4, you watch BBC." Do you see what I mean? It's another way to divide everybody. So if you can start to dip into, well, actually, yeah, okay, I have an opinion on this subject, but it's because I've watched X, Y, Z, and then I've made an opinion. We're back to sitting in the circle. Everybody in the circle has a different opinion, okay? And it's okay for there to be a different opinion, but we have to listen and respect the differences. So I really would encourage you to look at multiple sources. And this also includes YouTube, okay? Don't just take on face value because so-and-so has said something. That is the truth. Watch videos on the same subject from a number of different sources, because what that will do is it will hone your own discernment. What is my truth? What feels right to me? And my truth might not be your truth. I've seen my name bandied around a little bit on other people's videos where maybe I've channeled, you know, I don't know, some of the more controversial characters, maybe of the Heart Squad, and it will be, well, so-and-so says this about this person, but Amanda says this, so what's the truth? Well, that's the point. You know, it's like, use your discernment. What feels right to you? It's, you know, it's about discernment. So that's where we are, guys. The last point I've written down here, which is very important, is I've written down, it's okay to agree to disagree. If we could agree to disagree, the world would be an easier place. I'm talking here about, you know, the conversations you have with friends and family, okay? You will have different opinions on different things to certain people. Again, agreeing to disagree means namaste. I can see the divine in you. I respect your opinion. It isn't my truth, but I will agree to disagree, okay? Rather than, I'm just going to talk over you because you're wrong. And I'm going to send you multiple videos to show you that you're wrong. And don't you actually know about blah, 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 you know? That's not 3D, guys. 5D is, I'm going to agree to disagree with you on that. And hopefully there are other subjects where we can have consensus, okay? Remember, we're back to the circle. If you think of that circle and everybody's sitting there listening, there will be some people in that circle who will be like, yeah, this sounds good. There'll be other people sitting there that are like, not sure about that. And there'll be a few that's like, no, that's not right. But hopefully in that circle, everybody has the ability to at least listen and give that person the chance to say what they want to say, because for them it is coming from their heart, and it is their truth. But, you know, I also think there's a huge message coming through about here about, you know, slow down, slow down. If we all slowed down, it would make the whole subject of communication a lot easier as well. Okay, I think I might, because I mentioned the Galactics, I might just spray the Ashtar spray now, just to see what he might have to say on this. Ashtar. You see, even Ashtar, we haven't even launched the spray yet. We haven't even launched Ashtar yet. We will be doing in a few weeks. I know I keep saying it, but it's a very important one to get right. And we're busy bees. And I've mentioned Ashtar a few times, and each time I've mentioned Ashtar, there's comments come in saying, oh, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be doing that. So-and-so has said that, you know, Ashtar is false light. You know, Ashtar is this, Ashtar is that. Before they've even had the courtesy to allow Ashtar to speak. And as I look out of my window, there is this staggering light. It's a dark day. I said this on Facebook the other day. I took a picture of... it was the sun behind the clouds, but it was so bright, I couldn't look at it. I mean, I know you should never look at the sun, but there is a quality to the light at the moment that is so bright, and it just seems to come in little bursts, because as I say, it's not a sunny day today. It's actually a grey platinum day out there. The sky is grey and platinum, but the clouds are just illuminated by this white light. And I feel like Ashtar's saying, I'm just behind the cloud, I'm just there. I'm just slightly out of reach at the moment, but I'm not really. For those who've got the ears to hear and the hearts that are open, as the phone goes, okay, I am ready to communicate with you. But allow me the space to be able to do that without any preconceived assumptions in terms of who I am, what the galactic energy is. Let me just come through and say what needs to be said. Ashtar. Okay, well, I'll say it. He's saying it with love, but he's saying, please also respect the fact that at galactic level, we have advanced the art of communication to a very high degree. And that actually, when we come back to try to communicate with you, we have to lower our... we have to lower our energy to be able to speak and communicate. And it is so hard to get the message out there because there is so much fear of who we are, what we stand for, and what we can reveal. But there is truly nothing to be frightened of. We are your friends, not your enemies. But please realise that we too struggle to bring through messages that you can understand, because the human condition has imprisoned itself in shoulds and coulds and do's and don'ts and tribe against tribe and words used as weapons. Hence why I often do not use many words. I come through on the vibration of light and sound, which isn't necessarily about words, is about tones, is about vibration in the ear, is about vibration in the inner eye, is about vibration in the altar major, is about vibration in the crown, is vibration in the earth. Through vibration, through light, is how we will communicate, because the words and the language that you have upon this planet is enslaving and trapping you until you find a new way to be able to use it. We love and honour where you are right now, but we implore you to seek higher consciousness and ability to communicate to all beings on this earth at every level. Humans, animals, elementals, celestials. But start with your fellow brother and sister and the person beside you. Go into your hearts and you will find the codes. Align your heart to your throat so that the words you speak come from that place, which contains a diamond core light. Align your ears to your heart so that your ears are tuned in to heart consciousness and those diamond codes also. We will reveal more at a later date. Until then, Godspeed. It's a bit sobering, isn't it? But it's true. You know, what was Metatron showing us? House of Commons, order, order, order. You know, people shouting over each other, not able to behave themselves. Back to what John Lennon said, the first thing that I said on this video, everybody's talking but no one says a word. We can do better. Let's all try. Much love, guys. I'm going to end it there. Speak to you all soon. Bye-bye for now.